How can creative expression, making art, help us to have a more enjoyable, pleasurable lifestyle? In a previous video, I talked about why I like to be creative and make art. And in this video, I'd like to share with you 3 ways of how important it is and how creative expression and making art helps me to have a more enjoyable and fulfilled life. Years ago, I used to love playing computer games, and I gave it up because I realized that I was spending more time sitting in front of my computer rather than engaging in creative artistic expression and activity, which I really enjoy. So I just decided to adjust the time that I spent playing computer games and actually completely eradicated it. I've also reduced, in more recent years, reduced the amount of time that I spend on social media, and I've stopped watching quite as much news as I used to. These things I find really are not missed in my life, and I've discovered that there's 3 reasons how my life is more fulfilled, because I am, rather than doing these things, I'm concentrating on being creative, on making art. And so the first thing I discovered was that as I'm sitting, as I'm working, particularly if I'm carving or in the garden or doing other things, my mind is focused on what I'm doing. I'm in the moment. I'm present and engaged with what I'm doing at that very moment. And I really enjoy it. It's just such a simple thing to be sitting and tinkering and enjoying being outside, often sitting up on my porch or just out here on a Sunday afternoon. It's beautiful. And rather than being distracted by social media or anything else, I'm totally engaged in what I'm doing. And I find it's really quite difficult sitting here making the video. I thought, I can sit here and do some carving, but I can't concentrate on what I'm sharing and doing the carving at the same time, because it is requiring so much of my attention, or I have learned to give it as much attention as it needs to be able to really produce the type of work that I enjoy doing the most. So being focused, being present in the now, not thinking about yesterday, not worrying about what happened then or worrying about what might happen tomorrow or that side of things, that I'm really concentrating and really being present right in the moment. And this also spreads out into other things that I'm doing. When I'm gardening, quite often I'm really sharply focused, unless it's a mundane task, and then that doesn't matter so much, and I'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. Or if I'm doing other creative things that I really enjoy, when I'm taking photographs, if something's really exciting and happening, I am totally zoned into what I'm doing. And if I break that flow, so sometimes I'll be sitting doing carving and I'll find myself tensing up and putting too much pressure on something, and I realized, my mind has drifted away from what I'm purposefully doing, and I'm not giving it as enough attention as I need to be. And when I relax, when I concentrate again, I find I just have that flow of creativity, and the lines come nicely, the surfaces are just smoother, and just everything fits together more wonderfully. And because I'm being so focused, I'm very aware of my thoughts and of my emotions, and this is such a big part of being a creative. And the second reason that how being creative helps me have a more purposeful life is that as I'm spending time, as I'm choosing to spend my leisure time, I'm not throwing it away on a computer game or whatever's on social media. I'm creating something, I'm making something that is going to be beautiful. Sometimes it's going to be practical as well. Sometimes it's going to feed us. It's going to be stuff that I'm growing in my garden, but it's always productive. And sure, doing anything creative, it takes time. It's a big difference between, say, gardening and carving and photography. I can make a picture in a 250th of a second, but there's a lot more to it than that. However, carving or growing food, we've got to plant the seed, we've got to wait for the seedling to come up, we've got to care for it, and all of these things take time, but instead of it being time that's used in a random way that might result in nothing, I find that when I'm being creative, it's all leading towards a purpose, and the result is going to be helpful or just beautiful. And these are good incentives for me to want to keep being creative. And the third thing that I want to touch on here is that as I'm engaging frequently and being creative, inspiration comes. I get into a flow, and it just helps my mind to be continually more creative. If for some reason I'm not doing any gardening or carving or photography or making videos, and this doesn't happen very often, but really it's difficult to get back into it because, yeah, I get out of the flow. Being in the flow is really important for me, and as I find that as I focus on whatever I'm doing creatively, fresh ideas come, and I make sure that I've got a notebook with me as often as possible because I like to write these things down and just keep the ideas in, not just in my mind, but in my book so I can refer back to them later on. And I like doing it analog, old school, with a pen and paper, just again to help me be somewhat separate from the technology. Don't get me wrong, I love the technology, but I find it really important to step away from it, to step back from it, and to disengage from it reasonably frequently. And with the areas of creative expression that I really enjoy, these things I tend to find nowadays are less and less linked to technology. And I also find as I'm engaged in my creative activities and the ideas flow, and as I get into that, just the rhythm of being creative, that new ideas are more likely to come to me more frequently. And quite often I'm sitting listening to music, I might be watching a movie, I might be having a conversation with my wife, and all of these things can add to my inspiration and just the feeling good of being creative and doing something practical and positive. And so to answer the question of, oh, how does being creative, how does making art help to make my life more fulfilled and more enjoyable? Well, the first reason was it helps me to stay mindful. It helps me to stay in the moment. And that's good not just for my art expression, but it's good for everyday life as well. And then the second reason is that I'm spending my leisure time purposefully, and this has then got an end result. It's got something tangible and practical, or just beautiful, hopefully, that others can enjoy as well. And then the third reason how it helps me is that I find that continual flow of ideas and inspiration will be uninterrupted as much as possible. And yeah, it crosses over. I might be in the garden doing something and be thinking about my carving that I'm going to continue that afternoon, or be making a video and things like that. So as I'm in the garden, sometimes I'm thinking about what video I'll make next because it's going to relate to something that I'm doing. So being mindful in the moment, but also getting those ideas for future projects or to be building on something that I'm already doing. And these things don't come quickly or easily. These are the result, there's reasons of how my life has improved as a result of being disciplined and being diligent and keeping on going. I bought a set of wood carving tools, just these little ones, from a local market. I've since picked up a few others. My favourite are a couple of Japanese tools I picked up second hand, and these chisels are just amazing. But it's something that I started doing just before COVID, so about 5 years ago, and I've just been quietly working away at it, improving and enjoying it. And it's taken some focus, it's taken some dedication, and I find now that this is an artistic, creative expression that I really, really do enjoy. And I've tried other things in the past. I've tried painting again and drawing some more, but just not so comfortable with anything as much as I am when I'm working with some simple tools and a beautiful piece of timber. And you'll probably see a bit more of this as I go. It is related to the other piece that I had in another video. It's actually part of an old wooden rice field plough. It's a piece of teak, and so I'm just making it beautiful again. And so, yeah, these things I find really important about really enjoying what I'm doing when I'm being creative rather than kind of struggling too much. And I found that with the wood carving, I'm really at peace with it and really at one with what I'm doing. And there's nothing quite like that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please click that like button. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a lot. And if you'd like to see the previous video in this series, please check it out here. And when I've got the next one done, I'll link it down here. Thanks very much for watching.